And we're back talking about cereal.
Talking about everyone's favorite breakfast food.
I told you.
It's Thursday, April 11th, year 2024. Welcome aboard, everybody. Listen to the Crushing Iron podcast, and this is episode 762.
Yeah, I told you, man. And we got about 762 replies to their favorite cereal.
We sure did.
Like, hey,
People
how do you...
very passionate about specific things, and cereal is one of them. It is like, yeah, it was in there. I mean, some of them I just totally forgot about. Hayden eats like Cinnamon Toast Crunch every once in a while. He loves that, but yeah, cereal is it's interesting, right? It's funny that like we grew up on, Pop-Tarts and cereal, all these things that were like, marketed as like, halfway decent breakfast foods, and they're just straight trash.
Oh, don't even look into the origin of cereal.
Oh, I know. It's total trash. Gatorade and, whole milk and like the whole shebang. It's like, this is all we need in life. The only thing that's stood the test of time is peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Yeah. And that should always be an everyone's staple. But yeah, very passionate thread going on in our closed group, Crushing Iron Group. You can search that on, I wouldn't say passionate, but you bringing up some good memories, a little nostalgia for bringing up your favorite cereal. Cause I'm not sure that many, I don't even know. I haven't bought a box of cereal the same in I don't know, light years. I'll occasionally have one when we go to my mom's cause she still eats cereal. And I will tell you this, and maybe this is just me being like old, is I think one of the most underrated cereals is Raisin Bran.
Okay. No, yeah.
I mean, if you get well, here's the caveat. You got to get a box with a legit amount of raisins, because you can like pour a whole bowl and have like 3 raisins. That's kind of like when you go to the restaurant and they have like, oh, we have a fruit medley with strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, pineapple, cantaloupe, and mango. And you're like, that's a pretty legit fruit cup. And then you get it. It's got 1 strawberry, half a blueberry, like a crumbled up, like disintegrated raspberry, 19 mangoes, and like 4 cantaloupes. All the fruit that fucking nobody wants. And they get you and they like this. See, here you go. You can have this. That's kind of what happens when you pour this cereal out for Raisin Bran. You don't get any raisins, and it totally changes your palate. So yeah, a good solid Raisin Bran, or even Raisin Bran Crunch, is a great one. Lots of good textures in there, and it's surprisingly sweet.
I think in a lot of ways, the raisin's the perfect food. It's kind of one of those ones that I like. My initial gut reaction to a raisin is like, ugh. But sometimes I like them. I just think it'd be really hard to overeat them, But
for sure.
Kind of don't like them, but you're kind of okay with them.
Yeah.
And I think if we had more food like that, we'd be like, all right, well, I guess I just really do need to eat for my body, because we are, what we eat.
Yeah, you definitely can't overeat raisins. At least, like, I don't know anybody. It's like, yeah, I just had too many raisins yesterday. Because like in their same family, at least I would guess, or dates, I could eat 1,400 dates because they taste like a dessert. Put a little peanut butter on them.
Well, that's the thing. You can't do that. They already put a ton of sugar on those things, probably.
Well, they don't.
That's why you like them.
They just are. They're just straight sugar and carbs. And you go look and you're like, holy shit! I just had my entire day's worth of carbohydrates and sugar in 6 dates. Especially the ones that haven't been pitted yet, because they're like big. Anyway, we'll get on with things. But yeah, raisins are solid. Raisin Bran solid. Thanks for everyone piling in and giving us your favorite cereal. It's always good back to go down memory lane and get people engaged, even if it's not triathlon related. It's your first time tuning in today. Welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have quite a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general terms of Babbles. We appreciate you tuning in today. We cover it all. We do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We do race recaps and also a lot of these previews. But for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through in life, not just as human beings, but also as coaches and athletes ourselves. We also talk frequently about what our own athletes are going through. He and I work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level athletes in the very first 5K or sprint triathlon, all the way up through elite level amateurs trying to get back to world championships and everyone in between from all over the globe. I'll use the feedback loop we have with them and Training Peaks emails, text messages, and the like to drive the discussion of the day. We also like to utilize our Facebook group, as we will do today, and we did on Tuesday. You can search that, Crushing Iron Group, answer one simple question, and let's right in. Awesome people, fantastic community, and passionate group of individuals about cereal. And so be a part of that community. Don't be a lurker. Be a participant. And just the way we did this whole week, we'll go in there and do a bit of a Q&A, take the pulse of the community, answer as many questions as we can. We'll finish those up today. That is it. We don't do sponsors. We don't do ads. We don't do coupon codes either. We do have an agenda, and that's to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Yeah. Maybe we should do ads for just natural foods like that, like raisins.
Like raisins?
We could be like a lobby for raisins or bananas.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. The stuff that it's legit. Like, you see these things on like commercials, and I always wonder, like, why do you even need a commercial? Like, everyone goes to the store and thinks of this one brand. Like, we all think, you see a commercial, like, why are you even advertising? Like, when I see Coke commercials, I'm like, why? Why? This, for most people, they're either a Coke person or a Pepsi person, or they don't even care. It's not going to sway anybody. You're like, why do you even have to, like, lobby for this or put a commercial? It's for, like, the brands, like, that's just what everybody gets to. It's like seeing a commercial for eggs. You're like, what? Why? No, you go to the store, you lift up the first cart, and you see, you make sure they're not broken, you put it in your cart. That's it. Just simple stuff. I'm like, why are we paying for commercials for stuff like this? But yet,
it's called brainwashing.
What's that?
It's called brainwashing.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't think you need them now, but they've been doing it forever. So it's like,
yeah, that's true. It's just keeping you hooked.
Oh yeah, you just got to be top of mind.
That's it. Keeping it top of mind. And that's kind of what these questions are about. And the first one off the cuff, Michael Barth. Thoughts on riding with headwind / tailwind / crosswind? I understand the idea of making yourself as small as possible going into a headwind, but what about tailwind? Would it even be more beneficial to sit up and make yourself bigger using your body almost like a sail? How does this change for crosswinds? This is an excellent idea, one close to my heart right now, as I'm also preparing for Ironman Texas as you are, and I actually experimented with this, and I'm sure you have too, at the lab.
Oh yeah.
In terms of, so the lab, we referenced it a lot. I was there last week. It's total headwind one way, total tailwind the other. So you give up negligible speed, I found, in when you have a tail. Yes, obviously the easiest one is the headwind. You want to be as small as possible, right? Sitting up, larger surface area, you're going to go slower. Tailwind, in my opinion, you should sit up some. You should not sit up continuously, because you do lose a little bit of speed, but it's negligible. I think I lost like 0.1 miles an hour compared to what when I was in aero. Because the thing is what happens, right? When you sit up, you put out more power because you're sitting up, just because of the angle of your body and physics. But then you also have to put up more power to keep the same speed. But then when you're in aero, you have to try harder because you're slipping through the air. You have to try harder. It's kind of like going downhill. Like, what am I getting on return here? And the reason I say, is aero always faster? Yes, it is. It's because there's just more air. You're just more slippery, and it's more of an advantage. The reason I say you should set up some is because if you have a huge tailwind, it is almost guaranteed that you have either just had a headwind or are about to get a headwind. So when you think about your position and holding it for like a really, really, really long time, this is especially true for courses where like you don't have that many turns, and you could go 20 miles in aero without having to sit up. And I always think it's good to sit up at some point, take a little bit of a breather, stretch out your lower back, open up your hip flexors a little bit. So in my opinion, sitting up occasionally is a good thing to give your lower back a break, because now you're about to, what you don't want to do is try to hold it in aero for as long as possible, right? 30, 40 minutes. make a quick turn, and then hop back. And now you realize you've got headwind for the next hour. Well, sitting up for even a minute going into the wind is going to lose you more time than if you had sat up in like 4 minutes with the tailwind. So to me, it's all about just knowing when to space out and relax a little bit and give your body a break. Take in some extra fuel as well. Like same thing. It's easier to take in fuel. It's easier to digest when you're sitting up versus in aero. And so if you know you've got, again, if you have a huge tailwind, a tailwind big enough to where you're thinking, hey, sitting up might be beneficial, then you know you're going to get the same thing in return as a headwind. So what you don't want to do is have to fuel into the headwind or as much. You still need to fuel, but I would top off the tank. To me, it's very similar to, why would you want to try to fuel and hydrate going down a hill, right? You're going to be going 30, 35, 40 miles an hour. I want to have both my hands on the bars, and I want to be working on my, my handling, being small, being low, and I'm going to be flying. I don't want to have to worry about sitting up, putting on my brakes, and taking in fuel. I want to take all that on while I'm going slower and sitting up, going up the hill. So, yes, I think you just sit up some. I definitely don't think you should sit up for like an hour straight. But also, know who you are. And we've all seen this, right? We've seen, on 70.3 Olympic, every course, you see athletes in all different kinds of positions. Athletes stretched out super long and low, athletes sitting up super high. You see everybody. So really know who you are. And, and we talk about this, and we've always referenced it in when we talk about Wisconsin because of how the course is laid. And Louisville was the same way back in the day, is that it was a lollipop. So you got a stick, a loop, and then a stick. And people would always look at the graph. Same thing with Louisville, and they'd see, straight shot, loops, come back flat. But then they come back on the flat, and they got a headwind, and they don't have the energy or the power, the stamina, or the core strength, and their lower back is shredded, and they sit up the whole way back. They got nothing. They're just bleeding time on tired legs having to do more work to go the same speed because now you're sitting up. So again, know yourself. If you need a break, take a break, but be as strategic as you can, right? Take a look at the weather. All right. Well, on race day, I know on the way out of town, I'm probably going to have, a headwind. All right. Be really, really cognizant about staying low because then you're going to get a break and then sit up. Or if you're going to get a tailwind, all right, you know what? Every 4 minutes, I'm going to sit up for 15 to 20 seconds, just stretch things out. Keep things loose, keep things relaxed. And then that way, when it's time to hit the headwind, I know I've saved a little bit of, not necessarily energy, but that time in aero. And for crosswinds, low is always better. Low and compact, not sitting straight up. And you got to kind of have, again, this is great for the lab too, is you gotta get used to like what it's felt like to almost like lean into the wind, and like just not with your bike, but more so your body to kind of like take the brunt of what it's doing. And to me, crosswinds are they're not fun either. But I would honestly take those probably over a straight headwind.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think that all that is right on the money. So I don't have a ton more to say other than I think. When I'm in situations like that, and because I rode at the lab so much and dealt with wind and heavy winds out there, and it's really like about, for me, is about getting momentum going, because it's just like if I got a little tailwind and I sit up for a while, like same deal. Yeah, it's probably not as fast, but it's negligible difference. But you kind of get it. And for me, it's just a body relaxer when all that kind of stuff. And then you just lean in and you get that momentum going. And yeah, when you cut down into aero and you're going faster, it's just the momentum piece of the bike to me is always really interesting, because I used to ride at the lab and I'd ride into that. It's like a half-mile stretch usually of dead wind right in your face sometimes. And if I came around that corner with good momentum and got down right into aero, it just seems easier when you're going faster, So like, that's all relative too, right? To your ability and everything like that. But like if you're going a certain speed and you hit a little bit faster than normal, it's easier for me to hold it longer. So that's kind of how I think about wind out there as far as when I get up. I feel a big tailwind. I'll definitely sit up for a while and, like you're saying, fuel and all that kind of stuff. But then, like, kind of just slowly get my speed going with it, use the wind as much as possible, and then just drop into aero. And it just, you can kind of feel a nice little groove and a nice pocket there. And you got a nice speed built up. And then that leaning with the crosswinds and all that. Yeah, it's like everything else you say, it's like when you say reach wide in the pool for your stroke, that doesn't mean out to the side. You know what I mean? It's got to be it's like not overreacting. To me, that's the biggest part of crosswinds is just being real calm, and just a subtle shift to kind of, just compensate for what's going on there. It's just a little weight shift to one side to kind of balance out everything. And I just think that's really important because I think a lot of people do super overreactions in the wind, no matter which way it is, And it's just sort of about, to me, riding in the wind is just about being calm.
Yep.
And you can, the minute your head is like, it's like a hill, right? If you see a hill and you're like, oh, there's a hill, I'm just going to run up it. But if you see a hill and you go, fuck, there's a hill, I got to, it's just like, it is what it is. You just take what it is. It's kind of like, if you ever do like a sailboat or something, you just kind of roll with the wind, that's the best way I can describe it. And you can't overpower it. So you have to just sort of like, in a weird way, take what it gives you. Like if I'm running in the wind, I'm kind of like, okay, this is probably going to keep me a little more upright instead of leaning forward or whatever too much, And it's weird how sometimes it can help your form if you let it.
Yeah, those are really great tips, and especially like we said about just relaxing. Don't be so tense, and don't grip the bike, because what you see most oftentimes, like when an athlete like over grips the bike, they're so twitchy, like everything is twitchy, and they're jerking it left and they're jerking it right, and then that usually relates to like overdoing it one way or the other, and it's just less than ideal. Joyce Leary, I'd like to hear your rationale for all the rest in swim sets. If I can hold 120-122, 100 on 130 forever, what do I really gain by standing around to 140 between each 100? I'm sure if I did that, I could swim them slightly faster, but open water endurance races have no breaks. It isn't obvious to me how this translates. Thanks. So good question. We get this one a lot. A few things. One, if you have 20 to 20 seconds rest, and you think you can do 120s, 122s all day, then maybe you're going too easy. That's just what I would say. I'm not your coach, but that would be what I would say. Then you're going too easy. If you have that much rest, then you're not going hard enough.
Well, I am your coach, and
then I'll let you take it from here.
Well, no, I think that's it's just an interesting question. I mean, we've kind of had this discussion. I just said, if you want to take a shorter break, go for it. I mean, it's just one of those things, especially right in swim workouts. We see it all the time. It's like to nail a swim workout for everybody across the board is kind of difficult, and I don't know. Certain times I feel like I need a little more rest. Sometimes I don't, but I think that's an interesting point. I mean, I've always found it super fascinating that you can just blast 100 in the pool and just be shelled and then be ready to go like within 6 seconds. I don't know. That's one of those like adult onset swimmer things for me, is that it amazes me how that does really help. But then I say that, and then by the end of my next 100, I'm starting to feel a little earlier. Yeah,
I mean, you bring up two great points for the reasoning behind rest, and the first and most important one, right, is right. You don't, talking about the open water swim races are just straight endurance races. They have no breaks, right? Well, if that was the case, then in cycling and running, we would never do intervals. And we would just always run the distance and never have changes of pace, right? It's just straight swimming. The biggest thing about swimming, there's two things. One is the aerobic and anaerobic demand that you're putting on yourself, and how you can actually your lack of ability to actually recover from that demand, right? In cycling, I can go zone 5, I can do VO2 max work for 4 minutes, 5 minutes, and then do 4 minutes of like barely moving my legs over, right? It's not total body. I'm not doing any work, right? It's just barely spinning the legs over, right? Maybe going from like 320 watts down to like 110 or less. And I'm not using anything. I'm able to really, really, really catch my breath on my own, right? I'm able to catch my breath. I'm able to stay controlled. I can go as slow as I want to, and I don't have to worry about anything else. Running, same thing, right? So if I said, might go out and do, an hour-long run, and then during that run, I want you to do, 4 or 5 minute efforts at threshold, and then you can either walk or jog the break, whatever you want to do, just to get your heart rate down low enough to now we can get it high enough to get the elicited response that we're going for, right? So you do your threshold effort, and then you can walk for 30 seconds, and your heart rate immediately comes down, right? And then you can jog a little bit, and you can go, your range can be from a threshold of like, 640s to 710s. And if you choose to really, really jog easy, you can go like 1010s. Like the difference in easy to hard is tremendous. And again, controlling your breathing in through your nose, very controlled. You can undulate that. Swimming is not that way. I can't ask you to be, all right, well, Joyce is using an example. I want you to go out and swim 8 600s. And I want you to do 8 600 done as 400 all out and then 200 super easy. You would do your first 400 all out, and then you would never catch your breath. Your heart rate would stay up, your form would fall, everything would go to shit the last 200. And then I'd give you a 30-second rest break, and then every time would go down and down. Because when you're swimming, and we talk about this a lot when it talks about preparation for a race, is when you have trouble in the water and you get fatigued, you're screwed. You can't coast like you can on the bike or pull over. You can't stop on the side of the road or the curb and have a seat like on the run or walk. You must keep going. And you use your entire body, full body, right? That's the biggest difference in why you have intervals, right? With swimming, because in order to truly rest and recover, you stop at the wall, right? Yes, you can go out and do some, some race pace or race style workouts where it's like 200 hard, 200 easy, and it's really, really, really difficult. And then what happens is you don't get the intended response because now you don't recover enough. So now your zone 4 effort is no longer your zone 4. Now it's your zone 3. And then your zone 1 effort is never zone 1. It's really a zone 2 because you have to keep moving in water or you will just continue to fall towards the bottom. And the other big thing is form. Swimming is the most technical of all the sports, and it's not even close. And so by not giving that adequate rest and giving your chance to reset and giving you more time to hold it for that longer period of time, then what you're doing is also allowing your body to recover adequately, but also to do correct form. And what you see a lot with athletes that have take too short of rest, then and short rest is good at some points. Like I've got plenty of sets that I'll give that's like, on 50s that are like 5 seconds rest, 10 seconds rest. But then when it comes to longer intervals, you do want to reset to make sure your form is correct every time you do it. And a 20-second send-off, 18-second send-off is not that crazy. Now, 30 seconds, that's a little bit much. But you want to do it the right way. Your heart rate's still up, and then you want to go back out and do it and repeat it. It's no different than intervals you do and other things. No difference in negative split runs or intervals or thresholds or pickups, fartleks, whatever you want to call it. In long runs, same thing for rides. It's your inability to actually recover while swimming, right? And you see this in open water races, and you see it in triathlons when people go out way too fast. They don't recover by swimming. They recover by treading water or grabbing onto a kayak because you can't actively get your heart rate to come down and regain the amount of oxygen you're now losing by having to hold your breath every other stroke. And that's why you stop and pause on all your reset. And you'll probably still see that your heart rate doesn't deviate that much. So what I would say is if you find yourself, if you're self-coached or coached, feeling like you have too much rest and it's too easy, then one, just like you said, shorten your rest just a little bit, or stop working out in the gray zone. If it's that easy, then go a little bit harder and see what it feels like. Because I promise you, if you go out and you swim a really, really hard 100, even a zone 3 100, you're going to need 15 to 20 seconds rest. So to do it right and to do it hard. And it's not about doing it once, it's about doing it 20 times. So you can do it all day. That's kind of like your low zone 2, your Ironman pace. But if you're thinking about like 70.3 pacing, you should be pushing it to where you're going to need 15 to 20 seconds rest. And then again, we talk about, eliciting the correct response. You don't want to do it once. You don't want to do, for you, that might be like 115s, 116s on 135, still getting 20 seconds rest. Well, the goal isn't to do, just 4 or 5 of those and falter back to 120s. It's to hold them all that level. Same thing as you would say, hey, well, Coach Mike, I see these 10 1-minute efforts. Why am I, I've got 1 minute in between. Why don't I just hold 10 minutes at, instead of doing 10 1-minute efforts, 15 1-minute efforts at 300 watts, why can't I do, a 10-minute effort or a 15-minute effort at 240 or 250? Because they're working on total opposite energy system. So again, like that's the biggest difference in swimming when you think about rest. And then it's even if you look at, the same could be argued. Well, when you look at, the best male and female athletes on the planet that do long course, open water swims, but also that do down to the 50. Like, why are they swimming 800s? Why are they swimming thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands, 20 to 30,000 yards a week to do a 50? It's because the more work you can do, the better. And rest allows you to do work. And again, the biggest thing, the answer to that question is just the demand that swimming has in your ability to actually rest and recover in real time. But yeah, long intervals are great. But I mean, like, I think I referenced this session that I did on Tuesday, like that I went in on Tuesday and got in the pool and did 7 600s. I took 30 seconds rest in between. I can tell you I did not feel recovered in between. It was more just a reset, get my stroke down, which I found, I think I talked about that, and then do it over again. But, breaking for 30 seconds isn't going to mean you're going to lose any time in a race.
Yeah, I mean, it's across the board. I find that whole concept interesting, right? It's like we always talk about, are you going hard enough on your hard stuff and easy enough on your easy stuff? And I think most triathletes will want to, because you hear it all the time, I got to go long, just to show it. And then, you want to go fast long, of course. But can you? I mean, like, you got to, it's almost like we talk about building the chassis and having a strong base, but then, like really building that engine too and tuning it up and making sure it's capable of going at a way higher speed just so you can cruise at a lower speed, and like, to me, that I just think about things in the simplest form. To me, that just makes sense, right? The faster you can go and the stronger you are, the longer you can hold a slower pace.
True.
But I just think about things like that because I don't. It just makes a lot of sense. When I was running a lot better than I am now, even though I run a lot, I was just running harder. Like on my strides, and I was just seeing faster speeds on shorter intervals and things like that. Really, like people would just strides, man, whatever. But that's like the key to running.
Yep.
Is getting warmed up, getting loose, and then kind of letting your body flow and get, see a little bit faster pace. And then you're like, oh, I can go this fast. And then, back in the day, it was my cruising speed was 830s to 9s or whatever. And I just don't do that anymore. I can't get there, and I think it's because I used to run a lot, pay more attention to working on strides and, those 30 to 45 second intervals and things like that. I don't know. That's all I got.
No, I mean, you had plenty. I took plenty from it. Tom Barker, are 85 millimeter deep wheels too much? I got a bargain, let's see, I got a bargain on a set and I'm yet to try them out. A lot of people have said handling might be difficult. No, I don't think they're too deep. The only thing you worry more about your front than you do your rear. Your rear is not irrelevant, but also bike handling is also relevant to the type of bike handler you are. So a lot of people that say, it's too windy for this, too windy for that, they're speaking about their own ability. So the best thing I can tell you is put them on your bike, go out in the wind, and ride. I mean, I legit just had this conversation with, while you were talking, had an athlete text me, cycling in 25-mile-an-hour winds, 1, good for bike handling and mental toughness, or 2, dumb. And my response, that's part of being a cyclist. I mean, it's like you can't avoid situations like that and expect to know what it's like or know what you have and what you don't have. Right. And you see a lot, again, talking about like going into the wind, a lot of athletes will do like the deepest front wheel possible and a disc wheel in these races that are super windy with lots of crosswinds, and they're sitting up, hanging on for dear life, like Sylvester Stone and Cliffhanger, and then they get no benefit from the deep wheels because they can't handle them. And it's funny, like the more you see these professionals race, if you look at their wheel choices, when they could run a deeper front wheel, a lot of them choose like a 60 millimeter depth, or even a 400 or 40 millimeter depth, like some 404s and an 808 in the back, or a 404 in the front and a disc in the back. Because it's all about, if you can't handle your bike and handle in a straight line, then you're going to go slower. And when people get scared or get fearful or get stressed, they don't go faster, they go slower. I always kind of joke that athletes, in their when they get fearful on the bike, and it's much like, when you're in the car by yourself and you go to back in a parking spot, you turn the volume down. The volume's got nothing to do with anything. And I'm sure if I can know, like, let me turn the music down when we find a parking spot. And like, what does that anything to do? It's all about concentration, right? The things we can do to lessen the ability to be distracted. And so I would say, like, first of all, get out there and try them out and see, and then test your bike handling ability. Because if you can't handle it, it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. And so it's like, and also what's going to give me confidence on race day? My ability to handle the bike over, 18 miles up to 112, or kind of being hopeful that I don't have to worry about it. Get out there, try it out, see how it feels. And if you feel like you're kind of sketch with it, get out there again and try to do it again and see if you get any better at handling it. And a lot of times, again, that's why these early season races are so tricky, is no one's been outside and no one has had wind to deal with. And then the first 12-mile-an-hour gust, you would think that it was, Hurricane C-26 blowing through with 900-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah, man, that's such a great question. I think it's all about the feel for the bike. What do I have? 90s?
You got 80s.
80s. Okay, so I go 80s in the front and back. But I remember the first time I put those things on, I was like freaking out because this is ridiculous. Probably at the lab or something, and it was a totally different feel. And it kind of goes back to this, I know a lot of people ride with, just regular wheels, and then they'll race with, race wheels. But I always ride with them just because I think it's because of that. It's just, I've gotten so used to dealing with wind on those things that I just, it's like holding onto a baseball bat. And I think I've used this analogy before. You can't grip it too tight. You got to have a feel for it. It's just got to be firm, but not squeezed. And that's when you have, just your reactions and flexibility, and everything works better. So it's kind of like, now I get used to riding with those things, and even in aero, if like a wind gust comes, I just kind of roll with it, man. It's like I used to really overreact, but I think it just takes time and familiarity with how things feel. So yeah, that's got to be the best answer. Is just you got to practice it. Mm-hmm. Because and then if you don't have a windy day, they're used to them, and that's great. But if it is windy, you're not going to be all like, oh shit, it's too windy out here. And that can you imagine not riding with them and then getting out there in a windy day on a race?
Oh man.
You're kind of uncomfortable with it. I mean, I never think about that shit. So I think that's a good thing when you're just totally used to it, and it's not going to catch you by surprise and basically ruin your day.
I mean, it just goes back to the same, no new things on race day. and that definitely qualifies as one of them. Next question from Josh Nellist. Any advice for bigger folks in climbing? I weigh around 225 pounds and I tend to average around 215 and 225 watts for a 70.3. But when I'm doing a zone 2 ride and trying to keep it easy, I'll end up around 300 watts on most climbs and higher if I lose focus. If I go any lower than that, I'm moving slow enough. I don't feel safe on the road. If I race this way and I dig myself a hole, that will mess up my run. Um, I don't think this is necessarily a topic that's for bigger folks. I think it's a topic that's for every cyclist. Is being able to control your gearing and your power on hills, and understanding that whatever you can do to keep your variability index as low as possible, so the difference between your average power and your normalized power as close together as possible is the best solution. So for a lot of people, that really can only be solved with two things. Three things. One is just overall training and fitness, right? Being comfortable holding higher power for longer periods of time, just becoming more aerobically efficient. Second one is your gearing choice, right? Is my cassette the cassette I need to have for this course for these hills, right? Is this what I need, or am I going to be running out of gears and going up hills where I have to, in my small chain ring, I've got to put out zone 4 power just to get up the hill. And then the other thing is just to me, it's just your ability to be patient and execute. Because yes, you go slower on hills. Guess what? Newsflash. We all do. Everyone goes slower uphill and everyone goes faster downhill. But a lot of times it comes to just, smooth, steady, controlled, again, relaxed, like you talked about a lot, relaxed pedal strokes. You're not standing up out of the saddle. You're not swaying back and forth. You're not fighting your bike. You're just sitting there, right? Pretending like there's a book on top of your head and you can't let it fall off. Just super controlled. That's it. But yeah, the biggest thing, again, two biggest things. This is for every athlete. Is make sure you got the right gearing and make sure that you're doing the best you can to get the fitness level to where you're able to go up that and not be smoked. And so that might not be the answer you want to hear, but that's for every athlete, because I see it all the time. Athletes dig themselves a hole with how much they overcook themselves on hills. And they don't like feeling like they're going so slow. They don't like somebody passing them. And then they get done with their ride, and their whole ride was, they averaged 200 watts from normalized power, but their average power was only like 167. So you got the speed from your 167, but your body feels the 200. And that is not good at all for anyone. And so I think that's just, again, something to be cognizant of in your training. But I would choose gearing first.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I do think you're absolutely right. It applies to everybody. And this is, again, how I think about hills. I think people think about hills when they get there. And I think they need to think about them before they're there. And it goes back to my thoughts about momentum and stuff like that. And if you talk about gearing, I just think this is like something you need to practice a lot, is just work hills a lot. And then they become less, like the wind or something like that, where you can feel more comfortable going into it. And if I do hill repeats, I'll always do the hill repeat, and I'll go back, and then I'll go back like a half mile, and then just, go through the setup again, because I think a lot of people will kind of like, oh, there's a hill, there's a hill, there's a hill, there's a hill. And then it's here. And then they start climbing it. I think you got to climb it a half mile out. Because if you can get into the hill and get up it with less energy, you're already a quarter of the way up it or something. I just think, along the way, you have to understand how your gears move. Right. And when to get out of it, because if you wait too long, all these things, and you want to be in the exact right gear when you really need to be in the right gear. And that's when you got nothing left, no gears are left. You don't want to have nothing left and then have no more gearing. So that's the kind of thing. And I also think that dovetails into getting over it. That's the thing, is if you can get over it, you can get a lot more momentum going down. You can recover better, rather than, and get better speed. So To me, the hill it's sort of like we talk about transitions, right? I think they start a little bit before you get off the bike, and then, they take a while to get through to the run, and, it kind of bleeds over. So I would practice going back. If you're doing hill repeats, just go back and really think about using the terrain before the hill to get into the hill too, I don't know. I'm always trying to make things feel easier, and the further you can get up the hill without killing yourself, obviously, but it's like sort of slacking a little before the hill maybe. And frankly, you got to get a little bit more engaged a little earlier sometimes, I think.
No, I mean, you're spot on. You shift before you have to shift.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when people say they dropped your chain, I dropped my chain in my stupid bike. I'm like, maybe, but chances are you just shifted too late. You waited till you could barely get your legs over to shift. You always have to look up the road again. That's why, just like you said, practice makes perfect. And you got to practice it to know, all right, I got to shift to here because I know in the next 10 seconds, I'm going to need to be in that gear. It's always better to be in that gear a little bit too early than a little bit too late. Because then a lot of times the answer is not, I got to go down to the gear that I needed to be in. Now you're dropping down too, because you continue to slow down, or the incline gets even steeper. And that's when people drop their chain from doing it too late. And or panicking and trying to go from the big ring to the small ring.
Yes, that's a big one.
I mean, that's a huge issue. It's on the hillier courses. They'll be in their big chain, and then they just pop over, and they've only got one cog left anyway, and they just and then it jumps off the chain ring. Oh, I'm a bike mechanic. I can't wait to. No, a lot of times it's on you. Like a lot of flat tires are on the athlete, from not looking at where, not taking care of their tires, not taking care of their wheels, not checking things for a race day, running into potholes, running the shoulder of road, and we have to take some responsibility in there. But yeah, like you always prepare, because what's the worst thing that can happen? You have to spin too easy. Oh, the horror. Right? You're not straining. You're not the one like I think this gentleman said, like barely grinding over the gears. They're going to topple over. You're in the easiest gear possible, spinning your way up. What's the big deal? And then just like you said, doing that, because you see this all the time in hilly races, people burn their biscuits. And then about 5 feet from the apex of the hill, where they're just about to crest over, they stop pedaling. No leverage, no momentum, nothing. And then they take all that effort they learn and they start over from scratch now to go down the hill, versus like being in a position to turn your gears over and your pedals over at a cadence and a power quick enough to then when you get up and over the hill, then you haven't gone from 5 miles an hour, you're already at 12. Well, if you're at 12, you're going to be at 24 a lot quicker than you have started at 4. Now we're gaining a bit more time. And then guess what? When you get to the bottom of that hill, you're taking a 35 mile an hour speed into the next hill set of rollers instead of a 27 mile an hour speed. Gets you further of the way up using gravity, right? And then again, gearing ahead of time. That's why, again, like you said it great. It's like you have to gear ahead of time, period. And that you cannot do that. You can't know that without looking up the road. You have to kind of have this like switch in your head. And I was reminded of this, and I'm not going to have to use it that much in Texas, but I was reminded of that last week when I was on the trace. And that from riding so much is like, you just look up and you turn a corner and all right, I better go down 2 gears. I better go up 2 gears. You don't do it when it's necessary. You do it before you realize it's too late. And so that, to me, that just takes practice. But it will relieve a lot of pressure and a lot of stress, and it'll make you a lot less likely to have a mechanical on race day, which again can be 20, 30, 40 minutes, just little things like that. But again, make you a stronger and efficient cyclist.
Right on.
Preaching the choir here. Katie Vandervelde. That's a strong name. Katie Vandervelde asked, best tips to stay cool when racing in hot/humid weather. Staying cool is the name of the game, right? So I'm glad you said staying cool, not trying to get cool, because once you get hot, you can't go back. You're just hot. Tips to stay cool: start out as cool as possible. So, don't put your wetsuit on until the very, very last minute. Take a bottled water with ice in it and dump it down your chest and your neck right before you get in the water, or intermittently leading up to you getting in the water, keeping your core temp down. As soon as you get out of the water, wetsuit off, maybe walk a little bit to get your heart rate down, get on the bike. Obviously you have the wind, but every aid station, ice, water on the back of your neck, down your neck, on the front of your chest. That's the best thing you can do in the bike, on your quads, everything to kind of give you those sensations. Cold water in the core. That's one, I think one of the most challenging things is like time the freezing of your water bottles to where they are perfectly like unfrozen on race day. And I'm trying to think about like how to do this in Texas too, is like try to have like actual cold water. Cause to me, it's all about your core temp. A lot of people just focus on like, sunscreen and keeping their sun exposure down and putting cold water like on ourselves, like externally, which is great, but it's so much about our core temp. And so like keeping the fluids you're consuming, like there's nothing worse for keeping your core temp down than consuming lukewarm to warm water. I mean, you're just expediting the process. So anything you can do to, freeze bottles in your aid to go in your special needs, start out with like, ice in your bottles, anything you can do to like prolong that getting really, really hot in the core. And then on the run, really depends on how hot it is. Holding ice in your hand is great. Shoving ice down your bottoms, down your tri-top, holding onto sponges. Anything you can do to keep like your chest, your stomach, and like your crotch area as cool as possible, even if it's uncomfortable, depending on the shape or jaggedness of the ice chips, is going to keep you cooler on race day. Again, holding the ice is another great one. That sends good signals to keep your core temp low, and then obviously over your neck and over your face. And I've also read a recent research paper about that's total contrary to what I would have believed, in that wearing a hat often keeps you cooler than wearing a visor. Which to me is like the opposite. I would think, oh, I'll wear a visor because I can keep the sun off my face, but then I can let heat escape through my scalp. No. It was, you need to keep the sun off your hair and off your scalp, and you can trap the colder water from like ice and water on the top of your head with a cap.
Yeah.
And if they ever make any decently halfway good looking run caps, then I'll do that.
Yeah, I can't wear run caps, make me too hot.
Right. Yeah. That's the thing is like what I've found is it's not the cap, it's the bill.
Oh,
like when I get hot, I don't think about like taking my hat up. I think about turning my hat around backwards, because it's something about like the heat coming off my face. I feel like it's trapped underneath the bill, and it just creates like a greenhouse effect.
Oh, 100%. That's why I always run with my hat backwards.
Right. Well, I mean,
mesh.
That's your look though. You can pull off.
I know, but I also put ice under there, and it holds it up in there. Yeah. So, but I definitely, if I'm running with my cap on the right way, just normally in training, it's definitely hotter.
It's a lot.
But it's the mesh, I think, that just lets it breathe, but gives it enough shade or something. I don't know. But
yeah,
man, I think it's one of those things where I think you got to practice this too, right? You're doing it now, right? You just told me you're out running in, hoodies and jackets and shit, and it's not even that cold. And I just think that's stuff you practice. I mean, I don't think you can expect your body to not be used to heat and then just go into heat and then cool down with some ice in your hands. You know what I mean? Like I think you got to be prepped for that a little bit. Practice it, deal with hot conditions in whatever way you can. And just, I mean, it's just subtle, right? Half a degree or whatever, so that stuff all matters. But I don't know. For me, it's just, when I get in that wetsuit, I'm always pouring ice water on me. I'm trying to get cold before I get in the water, and then I try to get cold at the beginning of the bike too. I don't know if that's good or bad or whatever, but
I love it.
I just try to get that. Especially when I know it's going to be hot out there, I try to just like, even in like in transition or something, I'll just grab cold water and just be pouring it on me out of the swim and on my head, and it kind of gives you that, whoo, shit, that's cold. I want that feeling because I know I'm going to get hot, and I don't know if it's a fraction of a body temp degree or whatever that maybe makes a little difference, but you try and stay ahead of it, right? Like you're saying, on the bike is where the the run cool down, because the minute you hit that run, if you're a little bit dehydrated or you're overheated off that bike, you're screwed.
Over. Yep.
You might not even realize that that's the thing, is because it's windy on the bike. You might feel like it's no big deal, but the minute that thing stops, it's like that hot engine on the hood.
Yeah. And then you realize I've been sweating like this the last 6 hours and didn't even know it. Yeah, and then you're like, did I fuel enough? But it is. And I also think like one of the most underrated things to consider, which is something I'm currently considering and will consider on race day in Texas, is water temp versus ambient temp. Mm. Yes, are wetsuits faster? For sure. They're faster the slower you are, but they're faster for everyone. So is wearing, let's say, the water temp 74, which to me is just baking hot. Although I have been wearing like 2 swim caps in the pool lately to help like feel just hot. Is wearing a wetsuit in the warm water going to raise my core temp too high to where I'm going to reach my like peak too quick? And is that 2 minutes I might, to even 2.5, even call it 3, be generous. Or the 3 minutes I'm going to save in the water with my wetsuit on, is that going to be worth or be better than or negate the minutes that I might lose from allowing my core temp to get too hot too quick, or having to slow down so on the bike to where because I need to keep my heart rate down and doing it at mile 20 versus mile 40. And there's just a lot of that's again something you can practice if you have the ability to, but then it's just one of the, I think it's one of the harder decisions to make for a long course race is wetsuit or no wetsuit. How hot is the air temp? And I might hate it in the water during that I don't have a wetsuit on, but I might love it at mile 60 of the bike or mile 6 of the run when I haven't gotten as hot as I might get, because instead of starting out with a core temp of 97, I started out at 99 out of the water. So again, I think that's a tough choice.
Yeah. Would it matter to you if it was, let's say, air temp was 60 and it was cloudy versus sunny?
Yeah. I'd probably, it's still, the water temp is so high. Like 74 is like my cutoff. It just feels so hot. Yeah, that's a tough choice. I mean, I don't want to get in the water in the Lake of Woodlands, honestly, before race day. But I might, just to see like how hot it feels compared to what I've been swimming in. Actually, what I should probably do is check the water temp at the place that I swim now and see just how hot it is.
84.
Yeah. And just see like how it's affecting everything. But yeah, again, it's all about delaying it as long as possible. Clay Seal, what are the best activities to keep you near triathlon fitness besides the 3 disciplines? I mean, anything you can do for a long period of time that's aerobic. That could be anything. Probably not going to be pickleball, probably not going to be bocce ball, probably not badminton, but, rowing, sure. Cross-country skiing, for sure. Rollerblading, check.
Yes.
Like all these things that allow you to be aerobic and use muscles for long, and again, endurance for long periods of time, beneficial.
Yeah. Walking.
I mean, to me, it's just like I don't get done playing tennis. I'm like, God, that really helped my triathlon fitness. No, not at all. I mean, I think it helps me feel a little bit more athletic, but that's about it.
I think Clay's going to be bummed you didn't say pickleball was good.
Sorry, dude. Yeah, I'm not. I can't. As a longtime tennis player, I can't hop on the pickleball train.
No, you're not going to play. People are loving that, man.
Of course, they're loving it. Yeah, I mean, it's a social thing.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I mean, the place that I play tennis at it's got like a full like tiki bar and like, I mean, people, they just party hard. But it's more social. Yeah, I mean, it looks fantastic, and I'm sure it serves great. But as a tennis purist, I can't do it. I can't do it. Which I'm sure means in like 5 years we'll be on the podcast. But yeah, I played pickleball yesterday, and we can all roll back the archives and.
Oh, I know.
Episode 761.
They just put in a couple courts up here, dude, at the old clubhouse.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Oh, dude. Well, yeah. Well, maybe one day, maybe I'm up for a visit. I'll play a little bit. Got time for a few more. Cody James Meyer. Running is my true love. The sport I'm competitive in, I always want to do, and I never look forward to bike training sessions. That being said, I love doing 140.6 distance triathlons. Do you believe one day of riding is still going to be enough saddle time while still focusing more on running? Of course, some workouts would still be included. I mean, enough to finish? Sure. Enough to do your best? Hell no. Not even close.
What full?
Yeah, not even close.
Oh, how far is that ride?
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing. But even then, like,
I know.
And the thing about things like this is, I get it. You know, running is your love, and you have this. I have this conversation a lot with runners who come into the sport, and like, I get it. Everybody has like their true love, but your running won't even be close to what your ability is on race day because you'll be so shelled from the swim and the bike. So, I mean, is it enough? Sure. I got no doubt you could finish. Is it going to be enough? No. Sorry, Cody.
Well, to me, it's like, let's say love is on a continuum, right? You know, you love running 90% over the other two or whatever. You just need to slide that over to the bike a little bit more. Somebody once told me that, because I grew up biking and everything, but there's something about getting on the bike that it's like there's a disconnect there sometimes in your training for sure. And it's like swimming too. The more you do it, the more you love it. That's just simple to me. And I think you need to figure out how to get there. And someone said too, is like, once you get into biking, you'll realize that as much as you might love running, that cycling might be just as good, if not better for you.
It's a fact. It's a fact.
You know, it's amazing how that goes. It's like hard to get on the trainer, but once you kind of do it for maybe 4 or 5 or 6 times with consistency, then you're like, this ain't so bad. I kind of like this now because there's something about flipping the switch on the grind and taking a little control of it and feeling more confident with it or whatever and seeing something from it. So that's my advice.
No, that's a great take. Yeah, I like that a lot. All right, we're running out of time, so we're going to do rapid fire. I'll answer a question, then you answer a question. We have to do it in less than 20 seconds. So I'll take the first one.
Okay.
From Jason, just used my new dual sensor pedals and confirmed what I kind of knew already. I have a cycling imbalance of 37 and 63%, with the right leg being dominant. I have Ironman Texas in 3 weeks. Anything I can do in such a short time to help balance the power out. You won't be able to like make it 50-50, but what I would recommend for the next 2.5 or the next 2 weeks is in all your warm-ups and cool downs is choose a really, really, really high cadence. And that'll help you smooth things out. I wouldn't do single leg drills. I would go high cadence in your warm-ups and cool downs, something like way over cadence at like 90-95. Next question. Perfect segue. This one's for you. How much does your bike cadence really matter? If your natural cadence is lower, is it better to get your cadence faster and still put out the same wattage? ?
Yes. I think higher cadence, let's say your comfortable cadence is 80. I think you move that to 82 with the same effort and same feel. I mean, to me, that's the key to cycling. If that makes any sense. I just think if you're pedaling a little faster at the same effort in the same gear, you're doing better, right? I mean, it's
100%.
like I haven't seen any studies on that, but I would imagine there's probably something out there.
Work over it, work under it, but keep your natural.
Slide your natural. That's all I want to do.
Slide your
natural. From 80 to 81. How do you do it? You got to go a little faster.
From Natalie, any thoughts on getting a sweat test done before it heats up to get ahead of the salt game? Yes, do it. Next question. Iram, similar to running, is there a specific technique to master when riding a bike? How to choose cadence and gear? How the pedal turns should feel? Differences in technique when riding on flat surfaces compared to hills? All
right. So I've been thinking about this a lot lately. Again, for me, cycling is all about feeling balanced on your pedals. It's like running. You can kind of find that sweet spot, and I think you find that by messing around in different gears and getting out of control and trying different gears and getting caught and things like that, but then kind of getting back to your groove and just feeling balanced. I mean, that whole pedal stroke should feel a real nice balance, like you're almost soft on the pedals, but firm again.
I like that. Next question. Training for my first full in November. Are there different muscle groups I should focus on engaging on the bike to save other groups of the run? I wouldn't look at it as a should for saving. I would look at it, what's the most powerful and what do I use the most? And that would just make sure that you get a good bike fit and be up and over the bottom bracket a little bit more than you might think. You don't want to be sitting way back like on a road bike to where you're really engaging your glutes and your hamstrings and your calves a ton, because those are primarily your dominant run, not your dominant, but you use those a lot more in running than you do in cycling. So be a little bit up over the bottom bracket, maybe a little bit of a saddle tilt to help open up the hips. Bill, this is for you. I haven't pulled the trigger on not doing Augusta yet, but shoulder surgery rehab might force that decision. The question: what are y'all's experiences with deferrals, switching events? I've heard horror stories about it. For note, I didn't buy insurance. I'm on the Flex 90 window. I'm leaning towards moving to Chat 7.3 as opposed to deferral. I'll jump in and take this because I don't know that you've ever deferred a race your entire life. So you could speak to this. I'll speak personally. I haven't had any issues, and I have had athletes have really good experiences 90% of the time. I just had an athlete transfer from Chat to Des Moines. I've had athletes defer from year to year. And then I've had about 10% of those athletes have really shitty experiences, which is, I think, pretty much standard for customer service for big companies. Next question: how much does kicking play a role versus good arm form in the swim? What beat of kicking is the best for conserving energy but still providing power in open water swim?
You want that one too? Yeah.
Two beat kick, 4 beat kick max. Most people 2. Anything over that is over kicking.
Yeah, that's what I would have said.
Yeah.
Although I still haven't perfected the beat, so whatever.
Yeah, if you can't perfect the beat, then you don't want to be. It's like you want to sound like Mike when he was in his drummer days, nice and fluid and jamming. You don't want to sound like a 6-year-old who got a drum set for their birthday.
Yeah,
just erratic and energy and loud, obnoxious. Here's one for you, Rebecca. Why can't I get my heart rate in zone 4 on the bike? I train outside on the track, and zone 4 means my legs are dying before my heart rate hits zone 4. Should I just include more hills to get into zone 4? I have no problems getting in zone 4 and zone 6 running. So the question is, why can't I get my heart rate in zone 4 on the bike?
That could be a cadence thing too, right?
Yep.
I mean,
if you're a grinder, it's going to be hard to get your heart rate up.
Yeah, I mean that's the interesting thing about climbing hills to me. That's always been, if your heart rate is just starting to soar, it's almost better to go down a gear, make it a little bit harder and slow things down. When I heard that, I was like, holy shit, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So I think it is about higher cadence if you can get it,
Absolutely. Yep. And just remember that your heart rate zones in your cycling and running are always different. Running zones are always higher, so you can't take the same zones to apply for both. Most people's threshold running is 10 to 15, if not more, beats higher than it is in cycling. Jeff Terra, televised races. Are we stuck with only seeing some races live on Outside TV, then have to pay the $60 subscription for the app to watch them after the fact? Can we watch race for free on another app like we did with YouTube last year? No idea. I don't really mind, and I don't really care that there's commercials. I mean, I watch sports all the time on TV, and there's always commercials. Always. They just are. So I don't know why we make such a big deal about them having ads in these races. I get to watch it for free. A lot of times they're on demand. Don't care. And for those of you that are like, but I missed out on the commentary is terrible. So I'm not sure what you're missing out on. As long as you don't miss the finish and some side-by-sides, you ain't missing much. Garrett, is it worth throwing down the extra coin for an aero bike helmet if you're racing the full Ironman and your goal is to give yourself the best possible shot at a world's qualifier? Asking for a much faster, fitter friend.
Probably.
Yep. The answer is definitely yes. Seconds matter for sure. Marshall, does wearing buoyancy shorts every swim have a downfall? Yes. Jennifer Gies. Yeah, I know.
No, I don't.
This is right in your wheelhouse. Off topic, but I need to know this. What are the lyrics in your podcast music? I'm neck deep in misheard lyrics. For the months this has been plaguing me.
Wow. There's lyrics in there?
I no idea.
Tune?
I got nothing.
It's called 3 2 Fun Go. If you can look that up, they maybe have lyrics. I don't know.
There you go. There you go, Jim. One more plague. Kelly Nix, do you see any benefit to add high intensity interval training to the plan for us older athletes with not so fast twitch muscles? I see it as being beneficial for every single age group, regardless of how old you are, because we all have been, you're all born with a certain number of fast twitch muscles. It's about activating them. So yes, old people should use those too. And you're not old. You're just,
I swear.
older.
Yeah. Come on.
Us. Nick, hi both. My job is a landscape gardener, and that's very physical. My typical day involves climbing ladders, often holding heavy machinery. I'm going to skip down. Basically, he's saying, I'm 56 years old. I wonder whether I should be training smarter and reduce how much I do weekly in order to produce a better result in my next Ironman. I don't even really get a rest day because of my work. And as you once said in a podcast, the body only knows one type of stress. Last year, I was definitely overtrained. My coach, now ex-coach, had me do 4 metric Ironmans before my race at Austria. Last one 2 weeks out, which I now look back on with disbelief. Suffice to say that my bike was poorer than I wanted to. And 3 miles in on the run, I was ready to quit. Should I go to Italy undertrained in terms of training peak stats? Cheers, guys.
Wow. I don't know, man.
No, I don't micro machine that one.
This is a tough one to just kind of 20-second in. I got landscapers out here right now, and none of those guys do anything triathlon related. So
that's right. It is. It definitely can't do a 20-seconder. But I would reframe your last sentence. And should I go to Italy undertrained in terms of training peak stats? Training peak stats are useless. And I would go. My focus would be going into Italy properly trained, not overtrained, but not undertrained, properly trained. But yes, you have to take into account your day-to-day job. Like you and I both have athletes who are on their feet all day long, or that travel a ton, or work in emergency medicine, and like that impacts their ability. So yes, you have to take that into account and change things up. Last question. This is for both of us, but here you go. This is a good one to end it on. Hypothetical scenario, I put in all the hours for training and prepared for an Ironman. We meet right before the event starts. What would you tell me is the most important thing for me to do to crush this event?
To crush it? I got to say, you got to go into your own head and you got to just be focused as long as possible. And inside of that, really try to relax and have fun.
Yeah, I was going to say have fun.
Yeah.
Execute your own race and have fun.
And yeah, just absorb the energy of the event and channel it towards the finish line.
I like that. Like a prism.
Yeah.
Just like a prism. Yeah, have fun. Enjoy yourself. That is it. That's all we got. We made it through every single question, some long and in-depth and lengthy, some quick, but hopefully all informative. That is it. Have a great weekend. If you're out there racing, training, doing whatever it is you're going to do, hey, pickleball, whatever. Have fun. Execute your day. Have fun doing it. And learn something. Don't hide inside. That's all we got. As always, go to our website, c26triathlon.com. There's a one-stop shop for all things coaching, campus, and community. Still have a few spots available at Wisconsin Tri Camp and June Tri Camp in Nashville. Those are in June and July. So check those out. If you're looking for a great opportunity to get away, get in some great training with great people, check those out. And as always, if you need anything from Mike, he's available at mike@c26triathlon.com. Or if you need anything from me specifically, Robbie at c26triathlon.com.
All right, dude. I'll see you later.
All right, man. See you, buddy.